everyone, Happy New Year, welcome back, welcome to the second episode of Monday Mindfulness. So just as a quick recap, I want to explain a little bit about this new playlist that I started the end of last year. So Monday Mindfulness is going to be a series of episodes where throughout 2022 I would really like to discuss some of the more difficult subjects that I have personal experience with or that I just think are worthwhile talking about. So I'm meaning things like anxiety, depression, all sorts of things to do with mental health. So basically that is the aim of this new playlist. So bear with me as I'm just getting started on it, but welcome to episode 2. I want to just quickly mention this location that I'm in, actually coming to you from a hotel room as I'm filming this. So I'm hopefully going to get this up in time for Monday, but yes, so today's episode is all about having a positive mental attitude, my personal tips, and how to sort of overall have that feeling of happiness and peace within your own well-being, if that makes sense. So these are just my sort of observations, things I've been working on. This is definitely not an exhaustive list, and I will say there's going to be other YouTube videos out there that are way better than this one, but this is just my personal tips. So I've got 5, I think, to get through, which I'm going to discuss today. If you are new to my channel, my name is Lesley. My content varies between fashion and lifestyle and in this new Monday Mindfulness playlist. So please do give the video a like and subscribe if you fancy. So let's just get straight into it. So one of my aims for this video is to really hopefully start off 2022 with a positive mindset to both encourage myself and maybe anyone else who happens to be watching, because I think having a positive outlook is one of the most difficult things, and it's something that I have struggled with a lot myself. My default mode is definitely negative thoughts, ideas, a negative mindset, and it can be so difficult to overturn that. So these are some of the ways that I have personally tried to channel a little bit more positivity. So my first tip, and I will say this is probably one of the biggest changes that I have worked on with my own mental health journey, and that is paying attention to how I am talking to myself. So that inner critic, that voice that is in your thoughts. How is that voice talking to you? Is it saying kind, encouraging things, or is it being very critical and very harsh? So I'm going to admit that I really struggled with having a very tough inner critic that really was saying, I was saying the most brutal things to myself, which I then really began to believe, and just I soaked that all in, this very negative voice, this you can't do it kind of attitude. And not only can you not do it, you just can't do anything, this sort of mindset. So I would say I noticed this very harsh voice within myself most when I made a mistake. So say I did something very minor, like literally could be as small as burning some toast, maybe getting a parking ticket, I don't know, some minor inconvenience, nothing that is having a huge impact on your life. I would just start this negative monologue inside my head, which was, you're so stupid, like you've made another mistake. What kind of person can't even make a slice of toast? You've just burnt it again. No wonder you can't do anything. Other people don't do that. You're just so useless. Like, it was so relentless, and it was a barrage of negative thoughts that then it wasn't enough to then just criticize myself for that small mistake. I then had to say, and you did this, and remember you did that, and you did another stupid thing 5 years ago. It's funny to think about now just how I got really stuck in this intense negative mindset. And it wasn't until I read a few things actually online, it was maybe on like a Facebook meme or an Instagram meme, and it said something like, the way you talk to yourself matters. And I just slowly but surely realised that I was being so critical of myself, and that is not helpful in any way. It's just not helpful to be that critical of yourself. It doesn't make you improve. It doesn't stop you burning the toast the next time. It just makes you feel utterly miserable. So my advice would be, if you can relate to that at all, even maybe if it's not such a harsh monologue, or maybe it's even harsher, you need to try and stop it in its tracks. If you hear this sort of negative voice, even if it's things like, you can't do it, don't bother trying, you'll not achieve it, stop it in its tracks. Would you say that to a friend? If someone said to you, right, I've burnt the toast, I've got a parking ticket, I'm going for this job, I don't think I'll get it. Would you say to them, you probably won't get the job, so just don't bother? You would never say that. You would be kind, you'd be encouraging, and that's what you need to think. You need to think, I'm going to be a champion, I'm going to champion myself to be encouraging and positive, like, you can do this. Okay, you've made a mistake. It's a small mistake. These things happen. Everyone makes mistakes. This soft, nurturing, caring voice is a huge step in self-love, really, which I know maybe sounds, if you're not so confident with, saying I love myself, and I wasn't necessarily in that mindset myself, but self-love can start with, how are you talking to yourself? And just being encouraging and caring is definitely a good place to start. And just to touch on the mistake thing again, if you find that is when your inner voice is at its loudest, which I think in my case it definitely was, another way you can kind of rationalize things is say, is this going to matter in 5 years that I got a parking ticket? Or maybe it's something bigger. Even if it is something that's a bit more serious, you have to really, you can work on putting in perspective, 5 years, 10 years, is this truly going to impact my life? And I will, and that's maybe not something that everyone wants to look to do, but it definitely can be helpful. So just to round up the first tip, try and talk to yourself how you would talk to your dearest, closest friend if they came to you with an issue, or if they were going to attempt something new. Yes, just try it. Try and start channeling these nurturing thoughts, these positive thoughts, these encouraging thoughts that you can do it. Or if it is something like a mistake, that it's not the end of the world. Everyone makes mistakes and you can easily move past it. So that is the first tip. So this second tip is more to do with overall happiness and well-being, and it's not necessarily directly related to a positive mindset, because your mindset is something that's obviously coming from within. But one way that you can work on overall having a sort of happier existence is to pay attention to how you feel after certain events within your life. And what I mean by that is, pay attention to the people that you're spending time with and who protects your energy, who do you feel your best around, and who do you feel more self-conscious around, or less confident, or not your true self. So I know that this is to do with your external surroundings, but I think it can make a difference just pay attention to it. It doesn't mean you necessarily have to make huge changes, it's just making a note of it. Sorry if you can hear a little bit of background noise. I think they're cleaning the hallway outside this hotel room. But basically you want to ask yourself, who do you feel your best around? Who do you feel, once you've spent some time with them, maybe an afternoon or a lunch or a dinner, who do you leave feeling positive, happy, content about things? Who makes you feel good about yourself? Who is calming and reassuring? Who asks you interested, non-judgmental questions about you and your life? And who are you excited to share good news with? I think this is a very key sign. You shouldn't be scared to tell people your good news. You should be excited to tell them, whilst being mindful, of course. There's always situations where it's not necessarily the best thing. But if you are repeatedly sort of keeping good news to yourself around a certain person, then that can be a sign that they're not that comfortable with you being your most sort of successful self. And then in turn, you want to pay attention to, who do you feel you're most anxious around? Who do you feel maybe can be a little bit judgmental of you? Who is doubting? Who asks questions that are not really, on the face of it, the most tactful or encouraging? Who is downright rude? And I'm not saying you have to avoid these people, never talk to them. I'm just saying, pay attention to it. The thing is to remember, not everyone is going to be always the first type and always the second type. People will have different days, different weeks, different times of their life. So I'm absolutely not saying that you don't spend time with them. I'm just saying that you need to protect your energy and you need to protect your positive mindset. So maybe you can limit experiences with them if you do find that it's repeatedly affecting your kind of state of mind. So if you notice you always leave a lunch or leave a dinner or leave an event feeling worse about yourself, that is just a sign that maybe you need to limit those times, those occasions, those sorts of things. Sorry, there was a bit of noise outside the room, so I've just taken a wee break whilst it sort of quietens down and then I can continue on, because I just kept getting distracted by, getting a bit self-conscious that people were hearing me talk. But yeah, I think it's one of these things that, you can have so many different relationships with people, but I definitely pay attention to how do I feel after having a conversation with someone or spending time with them or going to a large event where there's a lot of people. If you notice that every time you go to one of these big events that you just feel more anxious, maybe you just don't feel as calm, then it's something you can look at, maybe limiting your time spent sort of doing those things. So I hope that kind of makes sense, but it's about paying attention to the environment around you, the external environment, and is there any way that you can kind of limit your time with certain groups or certain social activities, or can you maximize the time with the people that you are really close with, maybe close friends or close family. So that is tip number 2, and hopefully that has made sense. I'm going to move on to tip number 3, which is a classic. It is self-care. I think practicing self-care has got to be one of the best tips for slowly but surely building that positive mindset. So there was a point when the phrase self-care, I was definitely the eye roll scoffing person that was like, what is that? I thought, how self-indulgent, I just didn't really get it, to be honest. I didn't get it at all. But now I have really understood that before you can begin to offer support for other people or care for other people or be a good friend or be a good whatever, sister, mother, father, and various things, before you can do any of that, you need to look after yourself first and foremost, because you cannot pour from an empty cup, my friends. And this is a great phrase that I really love, because there was a point where I felt I had nothing left to pour, I had nothing to give, I couldn't help anyone because I was in such a low state myself, and I just had nothing left. So if your cup is full, you can then pour out some more. So you cannot pour from an empty cup. And the thing is about self-care, it can literally be such a range of things. It's not all, going to a spa and getting a massage. As lovely as that sounds, self-care can be a huge manner of different things. And you might be thinking, I actually don't know, what is self-care? What are self-care practices that I can add into my lifestyle? I don't know. I don't know what it is. And there are very easy examples to give, which I will go into, but I also want to say that they are going to be different for each person. But one way that you can find out what works for you is to use a metaphor. I think it's called a metaphor that Dr. Alex from Love Island has talked about, and me and my sister have talked about this a lot. I've also mentioned it on Instagram, and it is to imagine your mental health balance as being like a piggy bank, like a balance of coins. So some activities, some life tasks are going to unfortunately spend coins, and I don't mean like they're spending money. It's your mental health is going to be reduced doing some things, but there's also loads of ways that you can then gain coins by slotting in the certain activities or self-care practices to help you then build that balance back up. Does that make sense? So say for example, you have a very tough meeting at work. Maybe a project you've been working on is being critiqued, it's being analysed, it's a lot to take, or maybe you've got a huge stint at work, maybe you've got night shifts, or maybe you've got a big social event that you're a bit anxious about. After one of those, you may feel slightly anxious, you might feel slightly lower, you might feel you're just exhausted, you're drained. If those are emotions and feelings that you are experiencing, that sounds as if you've spent a coin. So you want to then look at ways that you can gain some coins. So ways that I personally would gain a coin would be maybe reading my book for half an hour, listening to some music that I like, like Taylor Swift, having a nice calming cup of tea, maybe talking to someone, talking to my sister, talking to a family member, talking to a close friend. Those sorts of things can help me reset the balance. So now I really do pay attention to when I feel like I've maybe unexpectedly gained a coin or maybe unexpectedly lost a coin, and me and my sister actually will say, how's your coin level, which is just, it's an easier ask than saying, how's your mental health? That's a bit severe and you might not be wanting to directly ask someone that or have that asked of you. But by saying how's your coin level is quite a nice way to open up that dialogue. So just to circle back and round up tip 3, practice self-care, look after your coin level, protect your energy. So moving on to tip number 4, which isn't going to be for everyone, I fully appreciate that, but I'm actually reverting back to the topic which my first Monday Mindfulness was on, which is alcohol consumption. So I noticed a really significant difference in my mood and positive mindset when I completely stopped drinking. So over the festive period, I have had a couple of glasses here and there with family, but moving into 2022, I am definitely committing to dry January and I want to commit to continuing it into February as well. I would really like to do 90 days without any alcohol, but one thing I definitely noticed was my mood improved when I was not drinking any alcohol at all. And I did touch on this in the previous video, so if you did want to go back and look at it, I will link it in the description box or I'll pop it up here. Alcohol is a depressant, so it lowers your mood, and if you're drinking like I was on a weekly basis, it can definitely just make having that positive mentality more difficult. So you don't necessarily need to cut it out completely, but I would say if you really want to commit to having a more positive outlook, you could maybe look at your alcohol consumption if you are drinking on a regular basis. I'm not going to say too much more on that subject since the previous video was completely on that, but I will be following up on my alcohol journey throughout this playlist, so hopefully I'll be able to come back to you and chat a bit more about the changes I've noticed since really trying to reduce my personal alcohol consumption. So I'm going to just move on to the final tip, which is one that I'm going to admit that I have struggled with myself. It's not one that I have been able to implement that easily into my own lifestyle, and this is one that I think you'll hear a lot whenever you Google or research positive mindset. It is practicing gratitude. So like I said, this is something that I haven't personally found the easiest, but it is something I want to commit to this year, is trying to practice gratitude. And my understanding of it is at the end of each day, or maybe it doesn't have to be daily, but even on a weekly basis, writing down or even just thinking of things that you are grateful for. And it doesn't need to be huge things, it can be very simple things, but this is supposed to be one of the best ways that you can actually boost your mental health, boost your positivity. So I am hoping to do a little bit more research on the subject. I'd quite like to read some books or maybe listen to some podcasts, because this is the way I find that I can then implement things a bit easier if I really understand it. At the minute I do have an app, which I'm just going to check what it's called. Oh, it's called 365 Gratitude, and it has positive affirmations. It sort of shows you throughout the day, and then at the end of the day it asks you to sort of check in and reflect and basically write down some things you're grateful for. I'm going to be honest and say I haven't been great at doing it, so I'm going to start doing that throughout this new year. Hopefully I'm going to try and commit. So I don't have much experience as to say how beneficial it is, but I just know from reading about it that practicing gratitude is one of the best ways to increase your positivity. So this is me now wrapping up this video. I hope it's been okay. I'm sorry if it's been a bit choppy, it's just because I'm filming in this hotel room and I don't feel as relaxed as normal, but thank you for watching. Let me know what you thought of my tips. Let me know if you had any questions. Like the last video. let's keep the comment space really positive with no judgment or anything if you did want to leave a comment or anything like that. But thank you so much for watching, and I will see you again soon for more Monday Mindfulness. Bye!